charity begins at home. I beg your pardon. And excuse me. And home in this instance has to do with Abeokuta, where the National Sports Festival is currently going on. And Ogun State athletes today disrupted the final day of action because they blocked the gates of the Games Village, that's Babcock University, were protesting over unpaid allowances. According to them, they claimed that only 78,000 naira was paid for a 2-week camp that was prior to the games, with no sign of daily bonuses or a 50,000 naira competition reward promised by the Governor Dapo Abiodun. Now, the protest stalled access for athletes, officials, and journalists, especially from other contingents as well, which meant that competition was delayed across various venues. Meanwhile, the Ogun State Government has countered what happened today, dismissing the action as premature, stating that payment processes were already underway via bank transfers. Now, officials from the state government emphasized that the administration's commitment to athlete welfare and attributed the protest to misinformation. Well, despite the disruption, the festival has been widely praised by a lot of people, with Team Ogun recording some really heartwarming performances and showcasing the state's organizational strength. Well, we'll be joined right now in this live from Abeokuta by Michael Ogusiji, who is the chairman of the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria, the Ogun State Chapter. Michael, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on Game On. Onyemuchiwa Achukwu is here with me as well. And please, we would like for you to, as succinctly as possible, explain exactly what happened.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Babatunde, and thank you, Mr. Oyebuchi, for joining this night. Yes, what actually happened was just let me say misinformation, as the state government has described it, and of course is a premature protest. And to me, I don't see it as protest. I see it as a discontent, grievances that was turned to protest, because in the protest in its real sense, must have aggrieved parties, agitating or demanding for a cause, at the same time carrying placard in a peaceful way. But with the video evidences circulating around, with what we've seen while we visited the scene, it shows athletes who are not happy about their delayed implement. You can see them right there. There was no form of disruption. There was no form of violence. What they did was just to ensure that they blocked the gate, preventing any vehicular movement at the Babcock Games Village. However, what actually happened was that the state governor, President Dapo Abiodun, did promise them 50,000 instant reward, irrespective of whatever gold or silver or medals that you have won. However, of course, the governor had promised 2.5 million for gold medalists, 1.5 million for silver medalists, and of course 1 million for bronze medalists. However, before that comes in, instant reward is 50,000 for all athletes. And I think because majority of them were here to get that alert about 5 days after the governor, a week after the governor promised them, they were, became restless and then apprehensive about what could happen. Tomorrow is the closing ceremony. If we don't take this step, what would happen? What would be our fate? And between you and I, what actually happened was that just last night, the state government approved that payment, and the money was paid around 10 p.m. last night to the coffers of the Ministry of Sport Development in the state. And you don't expect any bank institution in Nigeria at that 10 p.m. at that odd hour to start distributing money. The money was lodging, and the ministry had to go to, unknown to the Ministry of Youth and Sport Development in Ogun State, unknown to the government, that the athletes will, take that decision today. They paid the money last night, in anticipation that they would disburse this money, not knowing that the athletes had another plan in motion. So that was why I called it a premature display. Because to me, it's a premature display by the athletes, and immediately the government got wind of that information. They swung into action. I personally called the Commissioner for Sports Development in Ogun State, Honorable Asuisaka, to hear the side of the story, and he said I should join him to travel down to Babcock Election, where we traveled down and we met with some of the athletes. And the commissioner did showed me the bank transfer from the state government, from the Ministry of Finance in Ogun State to the Ministry of Sport Development, to show that actually this money came in late last night. So it was not as if the government was so insensitive to the plight of the athletes. Of course, no government, no responsible government would take welfare of its athletes, lightly or carelessly, because considering the performance of the athletes, considering last night's display by our footballers, Team Ogun, male football team, to the whole world, showing the talent, abundance of talent you have in Ogun State, no government will now deprive the athletes of their entitlements.
So Michael, sorry to cut you short.
They have done so far.
Yeah, so sorry to cut you short, but there is still the outstanding issue of the 78,000 naira, which was paid for a 2-week camp, which means that there was money also supposed to have been allocated for pre-tournament camping, which has not been paid or has not been fully paid.
Yes, we got wind of that, but I'm not that privy to details of that 78,000. But what actually, necessitated today's protest was the issue of that 50,000 instance reward, and then that has been settled. But the issue of the backlog of 78,000 camp allowances, I believe they've passed on their message to the appropriate quarters. The governor has gotten wind of the whole situation, and I believe the government will swing into action and investigate what went wrong and who is responsible. But definitely, if there's any foul play about the disbursements of the money or the payments of the athletes, I can assure you, Ed will roll. I can assure you that. This Prince Dapo Abiodun, the governor of Ogun State, is somebody who is intolerant to financial misappropriation, who is intolerant to negligence, financial negligence. He won't take that, and I believe whoever that is responsible for that, if the government had indeed released fund for that payment and somebody is sitting on it, definitely as will roll. But if not, then the government needs to do something before the end of the festival tomorrow.
Okay, you have a question for...
Yeah, Michael, it's good to see you. I think we met in Abeokuta, I think 2 weeks ago, where we came from, the press conference. Yeah, so it's good to see you.
Pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
You skip the pleasantries.
Thank you so much. You see, the problem is usually mutual mistrust. It's not about...
and possibly even poor communication as well.
Whether the athletes, I don't think they want to protest, but the issue is that they feel that if they don't protest, they are likely not to get their allowances paid. And most times, their actions are justified. It's not about the governor, it's the system that allows, promises made unfulfilled. And for so many years, it's not about the Ogun State athletes. Even the Super Eagles, the Golden Eaglets, a lot of athletes have been...
Super Falcons.
They have been promised a lot of things and they were not fulfilled. So I don't blame the athletes, So... No. So what do you want to say?
Yes, I agree with you, Oyebushi. I agree with you perfectly. Because just like you said, mutual mistrust between the government and, of course, the athletes. Because in years past, we've seen instances where the athletes have been neglected despite, performing wonders for the state government. And this time around, we have new Masha in town, the governor of Ogun State. And if you look at the record of the governor since he came on board 6 years ago, all of our athletes that represented the state at the National Sport Festival and, of course, at the National Youth Games as well. Even beyond the Youth Games, athletes that represented the country but of Ogun origin, who performed creditably well at the Olympics, at the All African Games, were rewarded bountifully, 2 million donation each. And in fact, athletes that went to the National Youth Games, in Asaba Delta last year, immediately they came back in September. The following month, October, the government hosted them and they gave that promised donation of 500,000 to gold medalists, 250,000 to silver medalists, and of course, 150,000 to bronze medalists. And these are secondary school pupils you are talking about here, those who represented the state at the youth level. Not to talk of professional athletes, mature athletes who are representing the state at the sport festival. So I can assure you that has been That might have been the cases in year past, but with the new government in place, we have never recorded any issue of promise made and promise failed.
Okay. So, Michael, let's talk about Team Ogun now. I mean, just recently, they dominated Scrabble at the festival, finishing top of the overall medals table with 4 gold, 3 silver, 1 bronze medals, led by standout players like David Oji, Adebisi Adekansi. Ogun State added to early wins in the singles and doubles by clinching more medals in the team event. And this is pretty much symptomatic of what we've seen at this festival. Ogun State has performed way beyond expectations that a lot of people have expected. If my producer could be kind enough to actually put up the medals table so we can see where Ogun is at, and they surprised quite a lot of people with the quality of their displays and with the level of competition that they put up. What would you, there you see it right there on your screen. Ogun State is currently third ahead of the likes of Rivers, Edo, Oyo, and Lagos. This is astounding, really, because that's 62 gold medals, 52 silver medals, 57 bronze medals, a total of 171. What would you ascribe to Ogun State's stunning performance at these games? Would you say it's the home advantage, as it were, or what would you ascribe to it?
No, not home advantage, but with adequate preparation, hard work, teamwork, and dedication and commitment of our coaches, and of course the state government providing an enabling environment for the athletes to thrive during their camping period. We record that many of the athletes, some were camped in Lagos, some were camped at Elisha, at Ikene, some were camped in Abeokuta, in some serene environments in Abeokuta. Most especially the Scrabble you mentioned earlier. There's no magic about it. What the state, I've spoken, on countless times on this platform that in Ogun State, the essence of the festival was not to host to win, but to host to actually, to display to the whole world and of course the nation the abundant talents we have in Ogun State. And what you have seen was just the meticulous plan and strategic, investment by the private-led administration in sport development in the state in its second term. And that is the result of what we are seeing. Because the Scrabble you are talking about, I recall that if you look at the facility that was given to these athletes for their camping, nobody could have ever imagined or envisaged that the state government could provide such state-of-the-art facility for the athletes during their camping. A very nice serene environment in one of the GROs we have in Ogun State, very quiet place for them to actually think, even for the chess players as well. So the results we are seeing today was as a result of overtime, long planning, and of course investment of the state government. However, just like we said, against our pessimism before the festival, even with sport writers, journalists in the state, we had written up Ogun State. Of course, we had believed that. We cannot host to win, but definitely we will maintain our traditional position of 6th or 8th position at the end of the festival. But what you have seen so far in the last 5 days has actually, proven many of us wrong, and has actually proven the justify the investment of the Ogun State government in sport development in the state. Not because of the festival alone. We have been doing this, we have been intentional, we have been strategic, the state government, for this festival in the last 2 years, exposing our athletes to international training, international competitions, and of course, continental and the national and zonal competitions as well, to ensure that they were at par with their contemporaries across the country. And that is the result of what we are seeing today. You can see Ogun competing with the like of Delta, Bayelsa. So it's an intentional
outstripping. But finally, before we let you go, I know it might be a trite question because you are from Ogun State. You live in Ogun State. You've watched this National Sports Festival. If you were to give a scorecard over 100, how well would you rate this National Sports Festival as against the few that you've actually witnessed?
Well, for me, without smizing and without sounding too arrogant, because Ogun State is my state, and of course I have to to give the state government, its flowers that they deserve. I will score the state government 95%.
That's a bit too much, but
what you think?
Okay.
Because yesterday alone, last night alone, in this short National Sports Festival since 1973, we have never had that overwhelming and unprecedented crowd that watched a male football match in this short National Sports Festival. And for the first time, it's happening in Abeokuta. I wish I in Abeokuta yesterday. Aside from the stadium alone is about 10,000 capacity stadium. But what we had yesterday, we have more than 20,000 fans. These are organic sport lovers, not arranged, sport lovers who converge on the MK Abiola Stadium yesterday.
I'm surprised that Ogun State was in the finals.
At the end of the day, the government had to shut down all the entrances to the stadium to prevent stampedes. Even at that, come and see Okada riders, taxi drivers parking their vehicles, motorcycles by the roadside, standing on top of the body of their vehicle to ensure they have a glimpse of what is going on the pitch through the screen board outside the stadium. That was unprecedented. It has never happened, and that is true. That passed a message to Ogun State government that investment in football can actually turn around the economy of the state, and that is also a message that sports should be at the front burner of every policy of the state government right now, because the governor himself was there yesterday and witnessed live and direct how Ogun people, how they came out enthusiastically to actually embrace sports. So that means our own Gateway United Football Club, the government needs to sit up and ensure Gateway did not go to relegation or relegated from the NLL to NLO. So that we can't have this kind of quality facility and we'll be having NLO team playing on this pitch. It's a disgrace to us in Ogun State. And I want to charge the Ogun State government to ensure the rally and Gateway United Football Club to gain promotion to the Nigeria Premier League.
You just had to plug Gateway United into that conversation. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, Michael Ogusiji. I think you've spoken quite eloquently, covering the issues that we pretty much talked about today. The protest at the Babcock University Games Village, and also probably charging the Ogun State government to ensure that there is proper usage and investment, usage of the facilities that have been built for these games, and investment in sports in order to build a thriving local economy around multiple sports, not just football, because you do recall that the Alake Sports Center has been upgraded to an excellent facility, so that is also important as well. So thank you for joining us tonight, Michael Ogusiji.